Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to take a drive to the new Gridserve location in Braintree. If you're an EV user already and you're a keen electric car enthusiast, you probably would have heard of this first of its kind in the UK electric forecourt. So the idea basically is it's like a motorway service station, but for electric cars only. There's no fuel, nothing else. Nice facilities apparently, and lots of charging options there for all EV users, including fast 350 kilowatt charging, Tesla charging, the whole lot. So I'm going to take a drive there today and have a look and see what it's like. So yeah, I mean, the first thing to do in the Polestar is precondition. So I've been heating up for about half an hour. Car is now nice and warm, and this is the display on the map here. You can see that it's showing my location to Gridserve in Braintree. It's going to take an hour and 33 and just 1% battery remaining, 87-mile drive. So yeah, I'm living on the edge. That's the whole idea. I charged last night to give me just enough to get there, because what I want to do is a full proper test for a separate video of 150 kilowatt charging to see how quick that is from a nice low battery percentage, and also from a position of having driven a fair distance already. The other tests I've done I've done a short drive to get to 150 kilowatt charger. So this time I'm going to drive 87 miles. So the car should be nicely warmed up, more representative of what it would be like in the real world if you're trying to do a longer trip. So something I wanted to mention that I've seen pop up a few times on some of the Facebook groups is the confusion over the range of the car. I feel like the Polestar has a couple of things that trip people up a little bit. If you have a look here on the main display, you can see my range is showing at 110 miles, 54% battery. Now, if you calculate that back, and I've already done that, I'm just looking down at my phone here, 54% showing, say, 110, 120 miles, works out as 34 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, or 2.95 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, 34 is a number that perhaps might be achievable on a motorway journey, and it's kind of what I got on the last long trip that I did. So that is showing a realistic figure. Now I'm going to travel 87 miles, and you saw from the map that I just showed you, it said 1% remaining. So those two numbers don't tie up. Now, this is something that catches people out. If you've charged the car up to 100%, you're likely to see 260 to 270 mile range. Now, that is based on an assumption of 28 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, which very few people get, especially in winter, in the rain, temperatures of 6 degrees. You're not going to get that figure. So that number is the theoretical range that you could do with mixed driving. So the WLTP kind of cycle, a bit of country driving, a bit of motorway driving, and mainly around the city. And it's a best case scenario. So the range you see on the display in front of you behind the steering wheel, take that with a pinch of salt, I'd say, if you're going on a long trip especially, and you're going to need to charge. Use Google Maps as the overriding number. Now, it tends to be quite pessimistic, so I would hopefully we'll arrive with a bit more than 1%, but we'll see how that pans out on the drive today. Okay, so we've been driving for a few minutes now, and not much, covered 10 miles, but the display on Google Maps is showing 0% now, so I'm hoping that improves, because we started off with it showing 1%, and that's gone down. Now, weather conditions are much worse today than on basically any of the other drives I've done. Temperature's 4 degrees, and it's raining. It's moderate rain, I'd say, so the road isn't completely soaked. But it is raining, and that always makes a big difference. A lot more resistance on the road, so that's going to increase your electrical consumption. And something else to note, that with this low temperature, the battery is, so on the Polestar it doesn't have any battery temperature indications, which is a little bit frustrating. It's not something you really need, but if you just want to know what kind of performance you're going to get from the battery, knowing its temperature will help, because a warm battery is going to give you better range with more efficiency. A cold battery is going to give you worse efficiency and less range. But the way that you can tell on the Polestar is by looking at this power display down on the bottom right, where you've got your charge and your power bar. So at the top of the power bar, there is a little grayed out section. and I'll see if I can get a shot of this before it warms up. Yeah, that grayed out section is an indication of you not being able to utilize the very top end of the power that the car has to offer, and that is based on the temperature of the battery, basically. So that's one good indication and way of telling whether your battery's up to temperature or not. So I decided I'd have to stop actually after not very much driving at the Clackett Lane services. This is the problem with driving early in the morning for me, is I always have a lot to drink when I get up and then need a toilet. So I decided to stop at Clackett Lane and get a snack and a coffee as well. And that would have been a good opportunity actually to charge. There's 2 Ecotricity chargers there, which I think, according to ZapMap, certainly the one with the CCS charger is working. But I want to see how it pans out by trying to get there with the charge that I've got. So I decided not to plug in. But again, it would have been sensible if I was there and I was a little concerned about range to take advantage of those few minutes. It was only 10 minutes maybe, but even so, if you stop for 10, 15 minutes, charge up a little bit, it adds something to your range, and it can help to reduce worrying about it basically later on if your battery percentage showing when you're going to get there is only a few percent. So the weather conditions have got actually quite a lot worse. I've been driving for, let's see, only about 45 minutes now, and it's heavy rain. Temperature's still at 5 degrees, and the roads are nicely soaked. So this is a good example, I think, today of driving in conditions that are probably the worst that you tend to see in the UK. I mean, maybe there's some areas in the north that might see a bit of snow, things like that, but certainly lots of water on the road and rain and temperature of 5 degrees is kind of the worst. So it's going to be really interesting to see. So far my consumption's 41 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. So it's definitely a lot worse than it was on the last long drive that I did, which was similar temperatures but dry roads. So this brought to mind something that I thought was worth mentioning, is how you can try and extend your range on a day like this if you think you're not going to make it to your destination but you want to try and conserve energy. So something else I should mention is I've been trying to drive a bit faster this time, and the roads are nice and clear. It's a Sunday morning, so driving at 70 or maybe just a little bit over to try and stick to the speed limit but equally get a higher average speed. There's less trucks on the road, less obstructions, things getting in the way. So that's also going to increase my consumption. But these are my tips if you want to try and save a bit of energy. So firstly, slowing down is obviously going to help a lot. You could set your speed, for example, at 60 miles an hour. Dropping 10 miles an hour is going to make a big difference. And the second tip is to duck in behind large vehicles like trucks. Now, obviously, you've got to make sure you drive safely, so don't follow too closely. But hypermilling behind another vehicle will take advantage of the fact that they break up the air mass. So you're not hitting the air mass and being subject to so much resistance. But by staying behind a big vehicle that's already broken up that air mass, you enter the turbulent air behind them, and you will conserve energy. Now, in order to do that, you probably do have to drive quite slowly, because a lot of the trucks do go at like 60 miles an hour. So you'd have to duck in behind those. But you might lose a few minutes on your journey, but it might only be 10 minutes that you'll lose, but you'll get there without having to find a charger. So you could stop and charge somewhere and spend the same amount of time, or you could slow down and duck in behind a big vehicle and perhaps get there at the same time as you would anyway. And then my final tip is you can start to turn things off as well to conserve energy. So things like the heated seat and the heated steering wheel, they don't use that much energy. So I don't really think that's going to help much. But the air conditioning, like the heating, you could completely turn it off. And one thing that's quite good in the Polestar is that it's very well sealed. So if you do turn it off, you'll probably find the residual heat will last quite long. Or you could just turn the temperature down. So these are little tips and tricks that can help you to extend your range. Those are the three main ones that spring to mind. And of course, if anyone has any other ideas, then feel free to mention those in the comments down below. Okay, so someone in my last video about the pilot assist and the active cruise control asked if it will bring you to a stop and it will slow down to a complete halt behind the car in front. And yeah, the answer is it absolutely will. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just coming up to the Dartford Tunnel and as always entering the queue of traffic. And you can see on the camera out the front of the window that I'm right behind a truck. And it almost came to a stop, but then it moved forward. So the really nice thing about this active cruise control is, yes, it will stop. It will stop for you if the car in front comes to a halt, and then it will follow them. So even if they're barely moving, it will then accelerate with that car in front of you. So to be honest, I find I'm a bit nervous most of the time, so I don't use it a lot. I tend to prefer to manually intervene, but yeah, you can use it in start-stop traffic, and it does work really well. Okay, so we've got about 35 minutes to go till we get there, and I'm on 19% battery with 2% estimated on arrival. So there really isn't much contingency. I decided now is a good time probably to employ one of those tricks that I mentioned. I've ducked in behind a truck that you can see on the camera facing forward that is limited in its speed, and I'm doing 60 miles an hour. So I thought, yeah, I'll duck in behind here just for the next little while and see if I can grab back 1% or so on the battery, because I don't have any particular concerns about charging, but it's things like if you've only got 2 or 3% left, what if you take a wrong turn, for example, and then find yourself having to loop back, or you can't find the charger? So I think now is a good time to just ease off a little bit. I was doing a solid 70-75 miles an hour most of the way for the last little section, and the rain is heavy, so there's a lot of resistance on the road. So yeah, we'll see how it goes for the next 35 minutes. So there's actually a very quick and easy way of working out your approximate range, and that is to look at the percentage that you've got remaining and double it. So if you've got 100%, double that, 200, that's 200 mile range. So 2 miles per percent. That actually works really well on the Polestar as a rough estimate, and it's quite a conservative number, so it's like a worst case scenario. Now, what's really interesting is that my display now that we're down at 16% is showing a range of 35 miles. So 2 times 16, that's 32. So it's actually not that far off now. However, like I was saying at the very beginning in the video, if you were to use that rule of thumb, 2 times 100%, would give you 200 miles. That's not what the car will show at the beginning of the day. If you charge at 100%, it'll show 260 to 270. So as you utilize your charge during your driving cycle, it will recalculate and give you different numbers, which tend to be more accurate as you've progressed through the day's driving. But yeah, my tip that actually I picked up from someone else is to just use 2 times the percent if you want to make a quick calculation for realistically how far you can really go. It works really well. Okay, so according to Google Maps, we're 7 minutes away, 4 miles to go. I've got just 8% left and 15 mile range apparently, so that doesn't seem that bad, but I've never been here before. So I was thinking about, like, if you are gonna cut it that fine, I think it's best to do that when you're going somewhere you actually know, because I haven't got much contingency if I take a wrong turn. But what is interesting is the display now of the power bar is showing a much bigger grayed out section, and the 7% has now gone red, and it came up with a warning saying reduce power. So yeah, that's the final little bit where it's trying to help you out to conserve what little energy you've got left. Okay, so we have arrived, and all was absolutely fine. 6% in fact. So one thing that actually helped a little bit, Google Maps doesn't know exactly that there's an entrance off the A131 into Gridserve. It seems to think you need to go around the back. So it still hasn't had this new little road layout updated. So this is great. We actually got here with 6% remaining.